Is self-preservation righteous? Is it natural? Is it the only thing inherent in us? So, first, I want to say that I am not advocating for letting your life go to waste, or anything that is like adjacent with any type of like almost suicidal type of mentality. That's the first thing I want to say. And I'm not necessarily arguing that self-preservation is not righteous. But in almost in all of the philosophy I have read, in all of the philosophy that I have been given in my education, granted, it is a Western education, which is relevant, because it always is, self preservation seems to be agreed upon by philosophers as the only thing that is inherent in a human being, that is their priority, to take care of themselves. Where that changes, that most people would agree, is with your kid. But that is an extension of your self-preservation, because now your goal is to preserve the genetics of the future of the offspring you have created. So, philosophers debate how we preserve, how we build community, how we trade, how we commerce, how we educate, but they do not necessarily debate the idea of self preservation being the most foundational building block of a human being. Now, as I say that, I realize kind of how big of a claim that feels to challenge. And perhaps it is, and perhaps all of my points are stupid, but I'm going to say them anyway. Because why not? Okay. First thing is the idea of self-preservation is deeply ingrained in the social contract as we understand it in the West, and as we understand it particularly in America. Think of the castle doctrine. Think of the free market. These are ideas where it's kind of a cycle where they inform our understanding of self-preservation, and our understanding of self-preservation informs these laws and informs these ways of being. So I have the right to, depending on the state I'm in, kill someone for being on my property, for being on my lawn, for taking a U-turn in my lawn, because it's self-preservation, because I felt my life was in danger. And so because this is so, I do feel that way. I feel that when someone takes a U-turn on my property, that my life is in danger. And therefore, the most just thing for me to do is self-preservation, to take care of myself. So really my argument here is to heavily question what we mean by self-preservation and what it being inherent in a human being is. Because currently the world we live in is profoundly selfish and it is greedy. And our understanding of self-preservation is skewed. And also, at the same time, what it means to preserve oneself in this system, to truly do that, you might have to be bad. You might have to steal. You might have to lie. You might have to con. So that's kind of where these things start to create friction, and they fuck with me, and things start to feel really gross really quickly when I think about self-preservation being inherent in a human. And then I think about how people's goals in this country, in the United States, is to consolidate wealth and to consolidate power. And that's the idea. That is what self-preservation is in this society. So, where I went from here was I thought about a breakup I heard. And I heard the entire thing because I was sitting in the other room. I had these two roommates who were dating. Terrible idea. And they broke up. And I was sitting in the room adjacent to where they were breaking up, and I could hear them. There was no door. And it was honestly the most fascinating thing I've ever overheard, because it was just not, it was not typical. And it was because the reason for the breakup was because this dude was like profoundly shitty, but in a way that was so driven by a lack of morals and a lack of ideology. He was just such an apathetic creature. And one of the things she said when she was breaking up with him and he was kind of like not wanting it to happen, she said, "Would you die for anything? Who would you die for?" And I thought, wow, what an insane thing to say when you're breaking up with someone. You say, "You're not good enough for me." Because what would you die for? Who would you die for? Tell me one person you would die for. Would you die for your family? He said no. And then he paused and he said, "Maybe I would die for my cats." And guess what? When he moved out, he left his cats with us and he blocked us and didn't even tell us he was going to leave the cats. So that man is a liar. He wouldn't die for anything. Let alone he wouldn't take care of something that he had opted to take care of anyway. But the idea that this man would not die for anything was so disturbing to her as it was to me that had sealed the deal. She said, "No, you are not an adult. You don't understand. You don't understand this world." So that brings me back to self-preservation. Because this boy, he was very preoccupied with that. He said, "That's what I think is right." They had many conversations around morals and their philosophies, and it was so clear that they had nothing in common. And he said, "I believe that it is just to preserve yourself, to take care of yourself, and to do what is best for you." And is that so? This gets down to really this argument of, am I an I, or am I an I that is part of a we? And to me, the answer is so obvious, and not in some hippie way, like, we are we. Like, we are part of a whole system. We are part of a community, whether we like it or not. And the reason that you take care of yourself is because that is your duty to keep your community healthy and to take care of yourself. But that has, and this is where I get into this idea, this modern idea, and like by modern I mean like post 1700s, of self-preservation, how it has been understood is so selfish, and it's so like alienated from everything else. There's this attempt to sanitize the entire environment and just kind of focus on the one cell that you are and be like, that's what you preserve, that's what you preserve. And it's just not true. So I do not think that that is just, because if you live in a world where to preserve yourself you must exploit people who are more vulnerable than you, and when you get up, when you finally climb up after climbing on top of all of these bodies, when you get to the top and then you pull the ladder up from behind you, what is the point of that? What is the point of that? Is that worth preserving? Are you at that point a self that is worth preserving? Because I don't think so. So I think that, and this is where I kind of want to bring like modern stuff, like today, current politics into this. I think that the way the world is currently, a lot of white people in America are having to reckon with things being possibly not going their way for the first time. And I don't just mean the economy, I mean everything. I mean their reality, their entire reality just being changed as they know it. So this is a time when they have to ask, am I going to preserve myself, my body, over everything else? And that is a question that they may not have asked themselves before. For example, I am from Turkey. I was born and raised there. And if there is a war that happens there, that won't change the fact that that is my home. That is my home, so I will go there. I will go there if it's being bombed. I will go there if it's prosperous. I will go there. That doesn't change for me because that's where I'm from. I think a lot of people who are from the imperial core are really having to question that right now. And what does self-preservation mean? Does it mean I get rich and I am untouched by conflict in the global south that my country has caused? Is that what self-preservation is? Because you go home and you're alone and you look at your phone and there's some notification from Tinder and you remind yourself, wow, I'm so alone. Wow, everything's really expensive. But it's okay because one day I'll get a promotion. And then I can be like the dude down the street with the nicer fence on the house. And it's like, what are you preserving yourself for? And again, to reiterate, I'm not arguing that one should let their life go to waste. My argument is the opposite. My argument is make meaning. Make some fucking meaning. That's what people need to do. Make it worth something. Make it worthwhile. Yeah, I think my argument is that one person's life is not inherently worth protecting and preserving, especially if they are a coward and they use their life to actively endanger and hurt other people's. And it is in your control to not be that way. So don't. And sometimes that means that life is harder. And it's not easier. And it's not the most convenient route to success as your society has deemed it. But get creative. I find it so unfortunate how, uncreative people have become. And I don't just mean in an artistic sense, like the way that they view how their life could be, the paths they could take, the careers they could have. There's so much you can do. Be creative. Be creative and approach life with love and empathy and be open to being changed. This idea of self-preservation has made us so rigid. I can't do that because my boss will get angry, because my 401k, because blah, blah, blah. I've realized this recently. I was talking with my boyfriend, and I said to him, I realized that it's really easy for me to hear criticism from you because I trust you, and I'm not afraid of being changed by you. You're someone who I want to change me. I want you to change me. I want your impact on me and my personality and my life to be noticeable. So engage with things that you want to change you. If you are resistant to your environment, change it. Change it to be something you trust, to the extent that you can. I think it's okay to be changed. People preserve, they shell up. It's okay to be changed. Just you have to vet what is changing you. Thank you.